When the first English settlers arrived in North America, they found a land of opportunity and challenge. They brought not just families but ideas about wealth and work, hoping to build better lives far from Europe. The American economy began with these settlers, who had to adapt quickly to survive and prosper. Their choices would shape a nation that didn't yet exist. Great Britain saw the colonies as economic tools, using a system called mercantilism. Colonies supplied raw materials and in return, bought finished goods from England. England passed laws like the Navigation Acts, restricting colonial trade to benefit the empire. Colonists at first accepted these rules, enjoying British protection and a steady market. But this system planted seeds of conflict, as it kept the colonies economically dependent and limited their freedom. The early American economy was a mix of hope and control, colonists striving for prosperity, while Britain pulled the strings. This tension between ambition and control would define the colonies for over a century. Growth and creativity flourished, but so did frustration. These seeds would eventually grow into a fight for independence. Colonial America was a patchwork of economies shaped by geography and people. In New England, rocky soil led to shipbuilding, fishing, and bustling port cities like Boston. The middle colonies, New York, Pennsylvania, became the breadbasket, growing wheat and attracting diverse settlers who built vibrant cities. The South, with its warm climate, grew cash crops like tobacco, rice, and indigo on large plantations. This southern wealth depended on the forced labor of enslaved Africans who endured brutal conditions. The colonies were linked by the triangular trade ships carried goods to Africa, enslaved people to America, and raw materials back to Europe. This system generated huge profits for merchants and empires, but at a terrible human cost. The North thrived on trade and craftsmanship, the middle colonies on agriculture and diversity, and the South on plantation slavery. These differences would shape the nation's future. The economic engine of the colonies was powerful, but deeply unequal. Prosperity for some was built on the suffering of others. The seeds of both growth and division were sown in these early years. The legacy of this era would echo for generations. For years, Britain let the colonies manage their own affairs, but after the costly French and Indian War, everything changed. Britain, deep in debt, ended its policy of salutary neglect and began taxing the colonies directly. The Sugar Act and Stamp Act outraged colonists who protested, "No taxation without representation." Boycotts and protests, led by groups like the Sons of Liberty, pressured Parliament to repeal some taxes, but new ones followed. The Townshend Acts and Tea Act further inflamed tensions. The Boston Tea Party was a dramatic act of defiance, dumping British tea into the harbor. Britain responded with harsh punishments, closing Boston's port and tightening control. Economic disputes had become political crisis. The colonies were no longer just fighting over taxes. They were fighting for their rights and future. The stage was set for revolution. The struggle over economic freedom would soon become a fight for independence. The seeds of rebellion had taken root. The American economy was now at the heart of a movement for liberty. The road to revolution was paved with economic grievances. After the revolution, the United States faced the challenge of self-government. The Articles of Confederation created a weak central government, unable to tax or regulate trade. Congress could ask states for money, but couldn't enforce payment, leaving the nation broke and in debt. Each state acted like its own country, taxing goods from neighbors and printing its own money. This chaos strangled business and made national growth nearly impossible. Economic weakness led to unrest, most famously Shays' Rebellion, where desperate farmers rose up against high taxes and debt. The government was powerless to respond, exposing the system's flaws. Leaders realized the Articles were failing. The nation risked falling apart without a stronger government. The need for stability and prosperity was clear. The stage was set for a new constitution. America needed a government that could unite and strengthen the economy. The lessons of failure would shape the nation's future. The crisis of the 1780s convinced leaders that a new government was needed. The Constitution gave Congress power to tax, regulate trade, and create a single currency, laying the foundation for a unified economy. No more trade wars between states, goods could flow freely across borders. A stable currency and strong central authority encouraged business and growth. Alexander Hamilton, the first Treasury Secretary, envisioned a dynamic economy based on manufacturing, trade, and finance. He proposed the federal government assume war debts, creating trust with investors. Hamilton established the Bank of the United States to manage money and issue currency. He pushed for tariffs to protect American industries from foreign competition. Not everyone agreed. Critics like Thomas Jefferson feared too much power for the government and wealthy elites. The debate was fierce, but Hamilton's vision largely prevailed. His financial system set America on a path to economic strength. The Constitution and Hamilton's ideas transformed the nation's future. The United States was now poised for growth. Thomas Jefferson had a different vision in America of independent farmers, not factories. Yet, as president, his actions changed the nation's economic path. The Louisiana Purchase doubled the country's size, opening vast lands for agriculture and westward expansion. This fueled economic growth and opportunity for generations. International conflicts soon disrupted trade. Jefferson's Embargo Act, meant to protect American interests, instead crippled the economy and was quickly repealed. But the embargo had an unexpected effect. Americans began building their own factories, especially in New England. Cut off from European goods, the seeds of American industry were planted. The War of 1812 further encouraged domestic manufacturing. The nation was becoming more self-sufficient, shifting from farms to factories. Jefferson's era, intended to preserve an agrarian ideal, actually accelerated industrial growth. The foundations of America's Industrial Revolution were laid. The economy was changing faster than anyone expected. By the 1820s, the United States had built the foundation for economic greatness. The Constitution and Hamilton's financial system created stability and trust. Westward expansion, fueled by the Louisiana Purchase, opened new resources and land. Early factories signaled a shift from farming to industry. The American system, championed by Henry Clay, used tariffs and infrastructure to unite the nation's markets. Roads and canals linked distant regions, creating a national economy. But this progress was built on deep contradictions. Southern wealth depended on slavery, fueling both the North's factories and Britain's mills. The divide between free and slave economies grew, setting the stage for future conflict. The early American economy was a story of transformation, ambition, and injustice. Leaders like Hamilton and Jefferson shaped its course, one through industry, the other through land. These years created the engine that would make America a superpower. But the legacy of division and inequality would haunt the nation for decades to come.